It's 1:45 in the morning. 5 hours after this race was supposed to end. One lap left. He's running third. There's a gap on the inside. And for 1/2 of 1 second, a decision is made that will cost everything, and nobody in that car knows it yet. He crosses the line in P2. He is scored in 29th. If you're new here, welcome to NASCAR Voltage, the channel that breaks down what actually happened when the story looks nothing like the scoreboard. Before we get into how a driver can finish second and get scored 29th, here's the scene. The Quaker State 400 at Atlanta was already a night nobody would forget before the controversy even started. Rain delayed the race by 3 hours and 9 minutes, pushing the finish past 1:45 a.m. Ryan Blaney dominated the entire event. He took the pole, won both stages, and led 171 laps. Then, with 5 laps to go, a crash wiped out everything Blaney had built, forcing the race into overtime. If this kind of real, no-fluff NASCAR breakdown is what you came for, we're closing in on 500 subscribers on this channel, and every subscribe, like, comment, and share genuinely moves us closer. Your support is what allows us to keep bringing detailed, fact-first content like this instead of recycled headlines, so if you haven't already, hit subscribe and drop a comment. It matters more than you'd think. The overtime restart put Carson Hocevar out front, and the field bunched up fast. Cameras were cutting between cars lap after lap as everyone jockeyed for position. And then, down the backstretch, Bubba Wallace saw a gap that would end his night. Here's exactly how the move unfolded. Wallace shoved Blaney forward, and Blaney's car swung up into Hocevar. That contact opened a gap on the inside, and Wallace dove for it. In doing so, his left side tires dropped below the double yellow line, the boundary NASCAR uses at superspeedway-style tracks to prevent drivers from advancing position by going below it. For a stretch through turns 3 and 4, Wallace ran alongside Blaney and Hocevar, 3 wide, fighting for the win. He then braked hard, ran out of room, and rejoined the track in third, the exact position he started the move in. A late shove from Ty Gibbs pushed him up to second at the checkered flag. Wallace crossed the line believing he had finished runner-up. He was wrong. NASCAR black flagged him after the race. His finish dropped from P2 to P29, a swing of 27 points in the championship standings. Wallace, his crew chief Charles Denike, and 2311 Racing's Dave Rogers spent a 31-minute meeting with NASCAR officials reviewing data before the decision was finalized. Managing Director Brad Moran confirmed there would be no appeal. Wallace's own reaction afterward was short and resigned. A penalty is a penalty. Ryan Blaney, hearing the news mid-interview, responded with a blunt 2-word reaction, that sucks. That was the human cost of the decision. But Wallace didn't accept it quietly. He laid out his defense in detail, almost like a closing argument. He maintained that he stayed in third place for the entire move and that he was hard on the brakes the whole time, trying to give the position back rather than take it. He pointed directly at the car's telemetry to make his case. You go back and look at the SMT. I'm on the brakes trying to keep it underneath me and not advance my position. He also argued that his own car didn't like the move, which he took as proof that he recognized the error and corrected it in real time. That wasn't the only tension of the night. Wallace had already clashed with his own teammate, Ty Gibbs, after contact in Stage 2 cost him stage points before the yellow line penalty piled on. Wallace summed up the friction bluntly, so, yeah, that's Toyota teammates. Don't race very well together. For a moment, his case against the penalty sounded airtight, and it was easy to believe he might actually be right. Then came the turn nobody expected, and it didn't come from a rival team. It came from his own team owner. Denny Hamlin, speaking on his own podcast, said he knew the penalty was coming the moment he saw the replay. Hamlin isolated a single 2-letter word in the rulebook that changes the entire case, to. The rule doesn't say a driver improves position below the line, it says a driver goes below the line to improve position. Under that wording, the attempt itself is the violation, not whether the pass was ever completed. Hamlin compared the yellow line to an invisible wall. Step over it, and the outcome of the move no longer matters. He also revealed the detail that quietly dismantled Wallace's entire defense. For a fraction of a second during the move, Wallace was actually running in the lead. NASCAR confirmed every part of that explanation on record. Mike Ford, NASCAR's VP of Racing Communications, stated that giving the position back afterward does not matter under the rule as written. He confirmed that Wallace did advance his position, even if only briefly, and that a driver does not need to complete a full pass for the rule to apply, being even a fraction of an inch ahead is enough. The core of NASCAR's ruling comes down to one simple fact: if Wallace never went below the line, he never ends up ahead of those cars in the first place. NASCAR also noted that 23XI Racing handled the entire protest process professionally, without confrontation, despite the team losing nearly everything in the final standings. The verdict that effectively closed the debate came from Kevin Harvick, a 2014 Cup Series champion who has made this exact kind of desperate late race move himself over the course of his career. His statement was direct: when you see him go from behind those cars to beside those cars, it's pretty hard to argue that you don't have an advantage in advancing your position. Harvick followed that with a more sympathetic read of the situation, noting that Wallace didn't cheat, he simply lost his position on the track for a split second at nearly 2 a.m. Both things can be true at once: an honest, split-second mistake, and a technically correct penalty under the rule as written. Just when it looked like the story was settled, Harvick opened a second debate entirely. He said plainly, "I don't know that we really need the double yellow line rule at Atlanta." His reasoning centers on the difference between track types. The double yellow line rule was built around the physics of Daytona and Talladega, where the steep banking and apron design make racing below the line genuinely dangerous. Atlanta's banking and apron are different, and Harvick's point raises the question of whether a 25-year-old safety rule still applies the same way at every track it's used on. This isn't the first time this exact rule has decided a race. Regan Smith was penalized under it at Talladega in 2008. Justin Haley was penalized under it at Daytona in 2018. The 2020 race saw a chaotic multi-car scenario involving Logano, DiBenedetto, Elliott, and Busch all tangled in the same rule's gray areas. Christopher Bell was penalized under the same rule at this same Atlanta track back in 2022. 2 decades of these calls have all rested on one phrase written into the rulebook: if in NASCAR's judgment. The stakes for Wallace now extend well beyond one bad night. He currently sits 13th in the points standings, and his playoff cushion has been cut from 82 points down to 55. 6 of his last 9 races have finished outside the top 20. Wallace himself acknowledged the danger of his current position, saying the drivers behind him in the standings are licking their chops. Even Harvick, after laying out the case against Wallace point by point, admitted the entire situation still isn't black and white. "I can see it both ways." So the question the sport is left with isn't really about one driver anymore. Was Bubba Wallace penalized for breaking a rule that no longer fits the track it was applied at? Or is a rule still a rule, no matter how the banking looks underneath it? If you want more breakdowns like this one, where we go past the scoreboard and into the actual rulebook, drop your verdict in the comments, share this with another NASCAR fan, and subscribe to NASCAR Voltage. We're almost at 500 subscribers, and every one of you helps this channel keep going. If you enjoyed this breakdown, you'll like what's coming next.